Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us at JLC Media. This is one of our ongoing conversations about the essence of change. All of our podcasts and our YouTube videos that we have come from client demand. And one of the demands was, could I find some people that were senior executive leaders, high-level leaders that made transitions? Of course, this is a common conversation in people in education, people in the military, because they have thoughts about what would it be like if I was not in a school business or not in the business of healthcare or not in the military. So today you're going to hear from two absolutely magnificent men who have made the transition. And I'm going to ask them some questions about how the transition went. It's a very much a casual conversation. Both of these gentlemen know who I am, so they know that it's fine to be vulnerable. It's fine to be open and honest, because that's who we are. So we speak from the heart all the time, and I think you're going to love it. With me is my partner in crime, Colleen Sullivan. She's sitting there and waving at you if you're looking at a podcast video, and she will be listening and helping me synthesize the learnings that unfold. And those of you that are listening, listen hard. There's great learning here. Both these gentlemen will provide incredible insight into what it really means to change from one entity to another. And with that said, I'm going to ask these guys to introduce each other. So, Terry, go ahead and introduce your partner in crime for many years there.
All right. Well, thanks, Ray. I'm pleased to be here, and also very pleased to introduce Vice Admiral Forrest Faison, retired, who I had the pleasure of serving for during 2015 to 2019 as the Deputy Surgeon General. He was the Surgeon General of the United States Navy. I've also had the pleasure of working for him previously as a commanding officer when he was the regional commander of Navy Medicine West a few years ago. And I have known him for many, many years. And he's an outstanding individual, and I think we'll learn a lot from him. He's currently the Senior Vice President at Cleveland State and the Chief of Healthcare Strategy. And so he's made the transition very well, and look forward to learning about some of those aspects of his transition. So
thank you.
Vice Admiral Forrest Faison.
All right, brother. Well, your job is to introduce Terry now.
Yeah, no, thanks so much, Terry. It is a real privilege and honor for me to introduce my, compatriot in crime and a great friend and someone with whom I have the deepest admiration and respect, and that's Rear Admiral Terry Moulton, retired also. As Terry said, I've known Terry for well over 20 years. And know him to be just an amazing individual, incredible leader, and just really a real superstar in my book. We've served together really kind of all around the world. And most recently had the privilege of being at the helm with Terry in DC as the Surgeon General and Deputy Surgeon Generals of the Navy Medicine during a period of really unprecedented change and challenge. And what really impressed me most about Terry was his calm demeanor, his let's get this done, let's take care of people. He really is the epitome and personification of what I consider to be a servant leader. And so it's a real privilege to be back with Terry again, as well as you, Ray and Colleen. It's great to see old friends again and to be back together with all of you. So thank you.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you. We should do another one of these just on what that unprecedented change looked like as you guys were holding things together through NDAA 17 forward. So exactly, that would be an interesting podcast for us to do at a later time. Well, for now, those of you listening, I'm going to start with Forrest and have him talk a little bit about what were your biggest surprises when you stepped into this new role. Now, you're no longer wearing the material we used to wear, right? We're in a whole new role. What were one or two or three of your biggest surprises, Forrest?
Well, Ray, I think what was most surprising to me is, when you're on active duty, you know that one day you're going to leave active duty. And you don't think about it. You try not to think about it. And then as time gets closer, you wonder, what can I do out in the civilian sector? What am I going to do? I mean, who's going to want, a Surgeon General? What is that? And it was a real concern for me about, how am I going to transition and what am I going to do? And so that was a real concern, number one. The other thing that was, when I left active duty, I didn't realize just how tired and what a pace that we had kept up while on active duty. And just, you don't really realize it. It's kind of like when you're running, you don't realize how fast you're going until you stop. And then you realize pretty quickly you need to stop. And that was one of the things that was a surprise to me, was just how important it was to have some downtime. And so I took off for 4 months before I started my new position here at Cleveland State. And in retrospect, I'm glad I did, because those people that jump right from one job to the next job, I really don't think you really can enter that with a clear mind and with the energy and enthusiasm that you want to bring to the table in what you do next. The second thing I learned was you really are in demand. Military people bring a set of core values, a work ethic, a commitment to a cause greater than themselves, and are very much in demand and very much admired. Less than 1% of the nation serves today. And there's a deal of admiration by folks for people that do. And I found that was really, really gratifying. It was kind of like an entree into some of the conversations that I had. The other thing that I learned related to that was there's no shortage of people that want you. And so there's all kinds of opportunities that are out there. And I found it was important, at least for me, to take a moment, during that downtime and say, ask myself a couple questions. And I think the first and most important is, what's the purpose of your life? And what do you want to do with the rest of your life? Because you really are starting chapter 2. And what's the purpose of your life, and how can you best fulfill that purpose? And so I encourage people to really take some time to do that. For me, the purpose of life is to help people. That's why I went into medicine. That's what the profession of medicine and healthcare is about. It's about helping other people. And I wanted to do something that was going to help other people. And so I looked around and how could I do that? And I accepted the job at Cleveland State. Cleveland State recruited me because of the opportunities to help others. Cleveland State is an urban university. It focuses on educating underserved, disadvantaged urban youth, most of whom hold down jobs to be able to go to college, most of whom are breadwinners for their families, most of whom are first generation college. And all of them are looking for a better lives for themselves and better for their families. And so I came here to help them build education programs to get more of them into careers in healthcare, and to help a city, which really is quite interesting. Cleveland's my hometown. And despite having Cleveland Clinic, which has for years been the top hospital in the world, and some really world-class healthcare, the actual health of Cleveland is well below national averages on every measure of health. And so I came here to help them find a way to improve the health of Cleveland. And I got here and pandemic happened. And so I shifted to help them get through the pandemic, and then had the privilege of doing that for all the public universities in Ohio. And so what I tell people is, and that's been rewarding for me. I tell people, take time to have some downtime and use that time to reflect on what the purpose of your life is. And amongst the many opportunities that will present themselves to you, pick the one that best helps you fulfill what you consider to be the purpose of your life, and what you can get excited and energized to get out of bed every day to do. So that's kind of what I learned.
Yeah.
I think that's great. Those three they're magnificent. And our work, guys. So what we're constantly doing is telling people, if your big why, if your big purpose doesn't match the organization that you're in, not a good fit. And what you just did was laid out for people that are concerned about what's my life going to be like afterwards. You laid out a way forward to be sure that if you believe in service, and obviously, gentlemen, thank you again for your service. So I've said that many times to you. People forget. And there's only the small percentage people in our country that actually serve active duty. So that was another really important piece to notice. And you bring a little bit of, who is this? This is an admiral. Can I talk to this admiral? That comes, in the transfer also. But my God, that was really a nice way you laid that out. Terry, how'd that resonate with you, and what do you have to add to that?
Yeah, no, I agree totally. I think as I was preparing for the transition, people talked about taking some time off, and I think that's absolutely right. I remember Admiral Faison taking some time off and watching him and his wife sit around the table drinking a little glass of wine and had smiles on their faces. And so being able to take a little time off and really reflect on what do you want to do, what really makes you happy when you get up in the morning is very important to do. I think the other one is that is the skill sets and the value we bring from the military service to the private sector, right? You don't have the confidence when you first come out. Can I do what is needed out there? But I will tell you, those that I've talked to, we absolutely do. We have the skill sets. We know how to build relationships. We know how to keep our eyes open and how to relate to others in the organization. So I think that those are real key aspects of that. And then I would say, like Forrest is saying, opportunity is out there for members that are transitioning. So keep that in mind as you all begin to transition.
Yeah, I think people do increase a certain level of fear and anxiety. Am I going to be okay out there? Am I needed? I think what you guys bring is phenomenal in terms of work ethic and discipline. To both of your points, I had the privilege of working with these gentlemen over time, and I consistently said, take time to reflect. Their lives are so not theirs in their environment. People were shoving them from and multiple levels, not just sideways and up, but down also. And there was something about what they did that just, I want to get them to react to. And I want to know if it's the same now. We always talk about quality, and quality is created at the last point that the customer or benefit uses the system. Now, you guys talked about that all the time. And I'm wondering whether or not you're seeing the same thing in your current environment. Are they able to look outbound to that end state, the place where that youngster who's come from a family where dad might not be there? All three of you know I've spent many years working in disadvantaged communities and schools. And those kids are smart. They just don't have access. So I'm wondering, is quality similar out there in the way I'm presenting it, Forrest, or do you see that any differently?
No, I think quality is out here, Ray. I think for us as an example, this pandemic has fundamentally changed higher education and created challenges. Most of the students that we support and serve work in the service industry, which, as you know, was hit very hard. To the extent that we actually run a food pantry for our students, because a lot of the leadership at the university came together and say, how do we help people? So I think the commitment to others, that mindset of servant leadership is there. So I was gratified to see that. I worried that, everybody's worried about the bottom line and that's all they care about. And I didn't find that to really be true. Wonderful. I found some really wonderful people that were committed to service to others and to caring for others for that. But you also mentioned about what we bring to the table. I also found that we brought some valuable skills to the table that I thought were really helpful, especially in the pandemic. Leadership, bringing leadership and a sense of calm. When the pandemic first hit and we had to send all our students home to learn remotely, well, that works great until you realize there are 300 students that are so poor they don't have laptops and they can't afford internet access if they can't go to a Starbucks and all the Starbucks are closed. We had another 100 students that would have been homeless or would have gone to unstable or unsafe social situations.
Absolutely.
And to sit there and step back, we deal in complexity when we're on active duty. And so this is like, okay, let's break it down to its component parts. Where can we get laptops? Where can we get hotspots? How can we keep these people? Just breaking it down to their parts. That's a skill set not everybody's got, but I found that it was highly valued and pretty essential to be able to deliver on quality and servant leadership in the civilian sector. We took it for granted. And Terry and I, we never thought about that as we were dealing with complexity every day of a global healthcare system. We just kind of took that for granted. But until you realize that that's a pretty rare commodity in some cases that is nonetheless essential for quality out here.
Unquestionably. There's a piece here that I'm going to let Terry react to that. I have been in multiple situations with these gentlemen where the level of complexity was high, but also a lot of push and shove from I want this versus I want that. And both of them consistently distilled that down to how are we best in service to the people that are in our care? How do we do that? So one of the things that they've heard me say this, those of you listening, if you haven't heard of us before, we talk about leadership presence. What's your stance? What's your focus? And what's your talk? I have seen both of these gentlemen in challenging situations, unflappable, leaning into the conversation. Help me understand. Tell me more. They both have done that in times when it would have been easy to say, I'm done with this conversation. I'm out the door. I know what I need to do. Goodbye. Not once did they do that. Their leadership presence was magnificent. And those of you that are listening to us, maybe for the first time, because we have two phenomenal people on this and you heard about them, I invite you to pay attention to that type of work where what is my leadership presence and how do I keep myself aware of what's going on? Terry, what are you thinking right now about what Forrest said, or a little bit about that presence piece?
Well, you're putting the pressure on us. I will say, one of the things that I did as the Deputy Surgeon General was I tried to anticipate what my boss, the Surgeon General, is going to be asking about, right? And if he also said, this is what I want, then I was a dog with a bone, really focusing on getting those things done, right? And sometimes he would say, Terry, I want you to go take this on. And so I would do that. So I think working from that perspective, there was a saying in the military, mission first, but people always. And I think Admiral Faison was, an exemplary model of that. And then, of course, role modeling what you do that. I never once heard him say anything different than that. How do we take care of the people? So that's what I would offer.
That's beautiful. Let me stay on you just for another second, Terry. If you had to right now, and it's just held you down, so what is your top learning, one or two learnings that you got from making this transition to your new space?
I think that probably the top is I was apprehensive about coming out. Do I have the skills to make it in the private sector? And it didn't take long to figure out I have plenty of skill sets for the private sector, and I could be very successful out there. So I've answered one of my questions for that. So do I keep going, or as long as I'm enjoying it, then I will keep going. But that's probably the biggest thing that I've learned.
Well, there's something here about fitness. Everybody talks about physical fitness. There's also job fitness. And right. I think the ability to use your knowledge, skill, and abilities effectively and to develop the relationships that matter as you're helping people achieve what they want to achieve. Those two are really huge. And we're going to kind of stay with those going forward in this essence of change work that we're doing. And you guys are such incredible role models. Colleen, what are you hearing and what are you noticing? This has been phenomenal, chat.
Sure, absolutely. I'm hearing so many great, incredible things, but I think a theme that I heard from both Forrest and Terry was reflection. That sense of really pausing to really think about what's my purpose? What do I want to do? What are my skill sets? What do I have to bring forward to this new environment? So that piece of reflection. The other piece that I really thought about a lot was this recharge. How can I recharge? So, to Forrest's point, so when I show up, I'm ready, right? I'm not just pushing forward when I've already had this incredible ops tempo going through. I can't even imagine the level of complexity that you dealt with every single day. I mean, and you were just going. And so dealing with that, just charging right into the next and reorganizing your mission versus pausing to really touch base with yourself to recharge. And then the third thing that I really listened was responding. How am I going to respond when I'm in this new corporate environment, which is a little bit different? And oh my goodness, just what I heard was the value that both of you bring because of your incredible leadership was absolutely embraced.
Oh, they are that. There is that respond with ability, and they both do that beautifully. I can't believe how fast the time has gone. We're coming near the end. So I want to talk about something that you both epitomize. When somebody says to me, what does a leader need to have? They need to have the ability to collaborate, and they need empathy. I believe you both have that, but I would love you to talk about both those pieces for a minute. And I'm going to switch back to you now, Forrest. So when I talk about collaboration and empathy, how does that land on you in your new role?
Yeah, it's pretty critical, to be honest with you. The thing that I've learned is the complexity of the civilian sector, and things that we just never really thought about or worried about with competition and all the pressures that go into things. The opportunity to collaborate, to understand someone else's perspective, to look for win-wins. Is pretty incredible. So as an example, we entered into a partnership that I was privileged to help put together with the three major health systems here in town, our university and Case Western University, to look at pandemic response and how do we come together with all this expertise for the next pandemic, and how do we take care of disadvantaged populations, and especially in urban environments. Which is pretty remarkable when you realize that those three health systems are competitors. And in the health systems today, in the healthcare industry, profit margins are razor thin. And yet I saw, not just me, but I saw in the others, the ability to come together and say, okay, what would make this a win-win for you? And then appeal to not profit margins or things like that, but really kind of a higher purpose of, let's help our neighbors. I found those to be pretty critical to get anything done because things are so complex. Nobody does anything by themselves. It's a team effort, but teams don't work without empathy and collaboration.
It's beautiful. That is just beautiful. I almost feel like I heard Simon Sinek do a talk saying, I wish my speeches weren't needed anymore. I hope people were already caring about one another and acting, with respect and responsibility. But I think the pressure, as you identified, that people feel, you would think private sector could be more collaborative. Sometimes they're pretty dog eat dog. Yeah. And that's a really great piece. Thank you. Terry, back to you. Empathy and collaboration. Chat a little bit about that from your new position.
Yeah, thanks, Ray. As Forrest was talking, it sort of brings to what came to my mind was a previous podcast that I've listened to from the JLC. And one of the things, and it really resonated with me, and it resonates here, and that's about relationships. You need to do or work more on the relationships and less on the to-do list, right? And I was a to-do list guy. Not that I didn't have empathy, and because I'm a people person, but for me personally, as I go forward, I'm going to really concentrate on the relationship part and less on the to-do list, because the to-do list will take care of itself. Wow. So in the private sector, collaboration, the relationship with your other colleagues, I think is very important to build. And it's not all about just continuing down the journey of handling the to-do list. Let's work on relationships so that we come together as a team when we identify an issue that needs to be worked.
Both these gentlemen brought you way underneath the sense of collaboration. It doesn't mean we sit in a meeting room together. It means we actually try and understand one another's perspectives, the issues that they're facing, so we can collaboratively find a way forward that enables everyone to win. I just can't tell you how great this conversation has been from my vantage point. We are out of time. I'm going to let Colleen tie a ribbon on it, and then I'll say goodbye to the audience.
Sure. No, just want to once again talk about just the modeling the way and how it's been a privilege to work with both of you, at least on the outskirts, and to watch how you both model the way of empathy and collaboration.
Oh, that's magnificent. All right, gentlemen, we're doing a checkout now. What was the best thing about this conversation from your vantage point, and why? All right, Terry, you start. Best thing about this conversation from your vantage point was blank, and why?
Well, I think Forrest validating my thoughts already, on that transition from the military to the private sector. I mean, I am so proud of our journey in military medicine, Navy medicine, military medicine, and how well we do things on the DoD side, right? And that really transitions over to the private sector, as Forrest was saying. So that's my biggest takeaway, and it gives me confidence again that as I go forward, that we've got the skill sets to do what we need to in the private sector. And I'm out.
Yeah. And you're out. Yes. So this is our ritual, isn't it? All right, Forrest, tell me what kind of got you the most here. This is great.
I think two things. First is the opportunity to see dear friends again, and to reconnect. And then the opportunity to share about the journey that we were on and we continue on. And it's not scary. It's not dark. It is full of promise. It is full of opportunity. It is an incredible opportunity to look and ask yourself a pretty important question. What's the purpose of your life? And then go and live it. And to reaffirm with all of you that we're all on the same journey together really has been gratifying and really a sense of peace. So thank you.
And are you out?
I'm out.
Yeah.
You've been away from me too long.
I know.
Hard. Jesus. All right, audience, thank you so much for listening. You can tell why I love these men. And you can tell how Colleen just does a beautiful job synthesizing what we're doing and what's going on in our work. You can find this podcast on YouTube, JLC Media YouTube, and you can also find it on Apple or Spotify. If you want to hear more from us or you'd like us to connect us with these magnificent men, you can get to Colleen on our website, and she'll be happy to get a text out to them and let her know somebody has a question or a comment. I cannot tell you how honored I have been to be with you men today and to be back with you. I feel like the gang's back in the room again. I don't want to tell anybody all the stuff we've talked about together, so that'd be a bad thing, but it has been just so wonderful being with you again. Thank you. Take care. And those listening, I hope you enjoyed this podcast. I think it was just great. Thank you so much.
Sincerest thanks for listening to this episode of the Everyday Leadership Conversations podcast. The Jorgensen Learning Center offers a variety of programs for individuals and organizations to enhance their communication and leadership skills. To find out more about programs and upcoming webinars, check out our events page at gojlc.com.